Yeah, I just rolled in.
A new wrinkle.
Well, not new, but reinforced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Yes,
I think the controller and I will step out for just a little bit to have a little conference. We'll be right back.
So maybe we should just want to like reconvene and say 10:15 or 10:30.
It won't take us that long. Okay.
We haven't really convened yet, so reconvening.
Is this what your meeting is about?
Oh no, it's COVID stuff. It's not this.
Oh man, I need some time to read this too. Madam Chair? Yeah. I've asked, I don't know if you've seen it, but I think the board review an extension of time, like maybe sometimes to get clarification on when the last draft that David was trying to finish the budget. I can't hear you. That's okay. No, sorry. I didn't put you in. It's one here. Okay. Yeah.
Then we can get that clarification from Zach.
I'm just talking.
In a minute.
But you're welcome.
No, it's illegal. You can't have a private meeting.
We're done. Told you one thing.
Having a private meeting.
Wow.
It's illegal.
Huh?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Good morning. It is Friday, August 7th. All three commissioners are here. Monica Reeves is doing the deputy clerk duties. We have Canyon County Clerk Chris Yamamoto is with us. Canyon County Controller Zach Wagner. It says on our agenda that we are going to consider approving. No, we're not. That's another one. Okay. Consider signing the fiscal year 2021 budget for publication. Is that what this meeting is?
And Madam Chair,
Are we going?
we have two housekeeping type items.
The petty cash and the, okay, that one, and the resolution increasing the limit of the credit card fee at the landfill. Is that correct?
We can take care of those two.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll go to the landfill. Who's handling that?
I can handle that directly.
Oh, I didn't even see Mr. Loper back there. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. So what are we doing, David, for you, for the landfill?
Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, I contacted Zach. As you well know, once in a while we have to increase our credit card prepaid expense account just due to the amount of usage we're getting charged, so we can reimburse that account. Due to COVID and just getting busier and busier, we're just seeing more and more credit card use, less cash. So those transactions, we're having more and more transactions, which means more and more fees. So we just need to increase that prepaid expense account, so we can pay it, have the money there available to pay the vendor.
The county has many bank accounts, and we're very, very particular about who has access to what accounts. So we've created a individual, unique, separate account for landfill credit card fees. So the credit card processors can pull their fees from that one account. Right now, there's $6,000 in that account. Sometimes for a month, the fees owed are greater than $6,000. So there's not enough money in that account to cover the fees. We need to raise that amount from $6,000 to $10,000 because of the increased activity of the landfill, that will allow the vendor to be paid in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And then on the back end, we replenish that, we replace that every month.
Madam Chair, it sounds like a really reasonable thing to do, and I think it sounds to me like the explanation is pretty clear. So do you anticipate that this will continue to be a practice that people will use more credit cards going forward, or what's your projection on that, David?
Yeah, members of the board, I believe so. We're just getting busier and busier. You know, we've kind of raised the amount to 10,000, so we don't have to come back before the board a year from now or 6 months, 8 months from now, just to make sure there's enough there. And then also we're constantly, we need to continue to monitor to make sure the fees that we're collecting is enough to replenish as well. And we'll continue to do that. I think for this fiscal year 20, we'll be a little behind. So I might be, you know, next fiscal year 21, about or to maybe increase that by another 50 cents or so. Right now we charge $1 per transaction. We decided to go that, there's two different routes you can go. You can either charge a fixed fee per transaction, or you can charge a percentage. We charge $1 per transaction. You know, for the $5 amount, that dollar is a big percentage.
Yeah.
But then for the larger amounts, it's not. But we do have an online portal where our commercial accounts can pay online with via credit card or debit card. And I just felt that this is a better way to go, just charging the fixed amount versus a percentage, because sometimes our vendors or our commercial guys will have like a $10,000, $20,000 bill. And for them to have the convenience of just paying it online and they get hit for like 2%, 3% is a lot.
Yeah.
So, and then we try to discourage the card use on the smaller amounts, $5, $6. And, you know, because we tell them we're going to charge you $1, but people don't care. They just want us
Convenience fees.
in their card machine. So, we'll have to look at what we're charging to make sure that we continue to be close to even.
Thank you. Appreciate that answer.
Commissioner Van Beek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think that this is a good move. I just know that we have a resolution to sign, and because this will be a binding document, we have an expense account to increase to $10 instead of $10,000. So this won't be the signing copy. I'm supportive of $10,000. That's all.
Okay.
So with that, then, Madam Chair, I move that we sign the resolution increasing the limit of the credit card fee account for the solid waste department to $10,000.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to increase the limit of the credit card fee account at the solid waste department. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Lord.
Get that typo fixed. And,
All right, thanks.
okay, that's got a typo on it. So, okay. The next thing is to consider approving an increase in the petty cash amount for the recorder's office.
I'll take that one. The recorder's office is extremely busy, a tremendous amount of activity happening there. We've reassigned a full-time position to recording and passports. So we're requesting an increase in our petty cash from $850 to $1,050. That will allow 8 individuals to have cash drawers with $100 each, and we'll have 1 additional cash drawer managed by the supervisor that'll have $250. That'll help us to process cash payments, cash transactions, and also the activity in the recorder's office, proper accounting procedures, separation of duties, fully followed. Those monies are reconciled, reviewed, receipted on a daily basis.
Okay. And that, she's going to occupy one of those 2 remodeled spaces on the 2nd floor in that area. Is that, am I thinking of the right area?
It's on the 3rd floor.
On the 3rd floor. Okay.
And yes, we did complete a remodel, and one of those spaces has been occupied by a new employee.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, this makes sense to me. We have to do this from time to time, adjust these values, and I'd make the motion that we authorize the increase in a petty cash amount for the recorder's office as requested.
Second.
Moved and seconded to increase by $200 the petty cash amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, we have the consider signing the fiscal year 2021 budget for publication.
Madam Chair, in light of the letter we received from the PA's office, 11th hour,
Yes.
this is nothing new. However, it is reinforcing their position and a position that has been taken by much of the state and city and county government. It is my position, and this office has looked at this extensively, is that these CARES Act money utilized for the purpose that Governor Little has in mind for the counties does not fit within the established guidelines. However, the FAQs seem to counteract that. So what is one supposed to rely upon? I don't know, and there is, as pointed out by the letter from Mr. Lougheed, there is a pending lawsuit. Therefore, and Zach and I just had a sidebar meeting, and we had discussed this prior, but I think given this letter from the PA, from our legal here in the county, I think it might be better as far as the publishing of the budget, that we take the CARES Act money out of that budget, go with the normal property tax, with the idea that we can reverse that. I guess the last opportunity we would have would be at the public hearing.
Correct, on August 26th.
And the reason you could reverse it then is because you wouldn't be increasing the property tax ask, you would actually be reducing it. Is that my understanding? That why you're allowed to do that?
Correct, you're allowed to, at your budget hearing, you can adopt or approve a property tax amount that is lower than what you published in your tentative budget.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Chris, this doesn't impact us. I'm saying the same thing that Commissioner Dale is trying to get to just reinforce our options, that in the event that we're going to be given some margin, we can still reevaluate the program and then opt in, even though we don't take it. Okay, thank you for that. So, and do we have an attorney on the line to weigh in aside from, I've read briefly through this?
I think Sam's pretty clear in his direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, so we're not, as of right now, we're leaving it off.
Yeah, well, that would be in the clerk's suggested budget, and I apologize, this is absolutely last minute.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it would be my suggestion that we go down that route, given the, I think we should not poo-poo our legal advice.
Thank
from
you.
the county.
I
So
agree.
to me, to have a CYA situation here, I think we will, and I talked to Zach out in the hall, he agrees. I think we should add the property tax back in with the idea that we may in fact reinsert the CARES money at the last minute and therefore save property tax.
Well, I suppose it's not a surprise to anybody in this room that I'm happy.
So,
Okay, Commissioner Dale?
question I have, if I can remember it,
Don't blame me for your memory.
That's helpful.
yeah, yeah, that really helped me jump.
There you go. There you go.
I've got a question, I think, in regards to this, that really leaves everything with urban renewal status quo. Nothing's changed because it's just going to be the standard property tax.
Commissioner Dale, that would be correct. If we went with the normal property tax, then the normal taxation and that split would apply with urban.
Right. So, yeah, and I think, and then it again reinforces our attempt to give meaningful and lasting property tax relief through not taking the new construction or the 3% even is more meaningful in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That would be absolutely correct.
Okay, so, Commissioner Van Beek.
Yes, I had emailed you earlier this morning. I know you've had a lot of email traffic, but what's the last date that we have to publish a tentative budget? Is it 2 weeks before? I asked about the date for August 12th, which would give us time to look at the changes that we made to the budget last night and continue discussing a couple of those things. I have some additional questions for you too in looking at the budget from last night.
So the budget needs to be published, the tentative budget needs to be published by the third week in August.
Okay, and so we're not there yet. We don't have to publish it yet.
There is some lag. When we send it to the newspaper, there's some reviewing and preparation, and it's published generally a few days after we send it to the newspaper.
So the third week in August would be the 17th. That week is right. We're looking at that, and we're at the 7th.
Is the third week of August next week?
So you're counting the Saturday that.
I'm not counting it, I'm just asking
Well,
what the third week in August is.
That would be a legal question, not a commissioner question.
Martha, in your experience on, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but typically what's the lag time in publication?
About 4 days.
4 days, and so.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and like Zach says, do you count August 1st? Is that the first week? And so we're already at week 2, 3 is next week, or is August 2nd.
You want to be on the safe side, not the.
I think one of the overriding factors, again, is advance notification, giving, I think, at least 2 weeks for the public to be aware of the hearing and to have the numbers, the information.
That's the intent.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that. Madam Chair, is this a good time to ask a question?
I have one really fast, if I might. Just to back up, because what Commissioner Dale referred to the new construction and all that. Will you give it to us again that what will change with if we do not add that to this? I've got to.
CARES Act or the?
Yeah, the CARES Act. If we're going to hold off on that, what is changing in the budget? Does the bottom line change? Which line? Where's it changing?
The change would be if we don't participate in CARES,
Yes.
then we don't make a payment to the Urban Renewal Agency.
Okay, so that's approximately $1 million.
Approximately $1 million.
Okay. And that's it?
And that's really about it. It was strictly just
A wash.
a wash
Okay.
On the expense side.
on the revenue side.
The revenue side, it just changes the source.
The source, instead of coming from federal government, comes from property tax.
We're going dollar for dollar.
Yeah,
Which
okay.
is no advantage to the county government.
Right.
a dollar.
It's that's what I wanted to make sure we have that on the record, that's the change that comes here. And again, I wanted it put again on the record. Do you feel good about that, or is this protected information? I can't, it might be protected. He doesn't have it marked that way, but it is. That's probably public information with regard to that suit, though, huh?
Oh, Madam Chair, if I could, you just jog my memory. My question about that I wanted to ask about the lawsuit and the timing and all that. Lawsuits take time to resolve. We very likely won't know the status of that lawsuit before it's time to finalize this budget, right?
Very likely.
Yeah, okay. That was kind of the pertinent question regarding whether or not we should add this in, and given the information that Mr. Wallahy just provided, I'm thinking you guys are going down the right road.
So we're not adding it in because, state that again, please.
It is our opinion that, our county legal agrees that utilizing the CARES Act money in the manner we are proposing is not within the guideline.
Okay.
Now, again, I will repeat that the Treasury FAQs take actually what I consider to be an opposite stance. And I was kind of hanging my hat on that. I believe it was FAQ 9 that said that the entity that first received the money was the one accountable, not the downstream. So what we're hearing from the governor is, no, they're not going to be accountable. To some degree. In other words, the state is not providing the county's cover.
Okay.
Saying that it's a voluntary action. We voluntarily participate. We're covering our
Buyer
own
beware.
Buyer beware, exactly.
Thank you, Clerk Yamamoto, very much for clarifying that.
And Madam Chair, that direction that came out this morning
Yes, yes.
From the governor's office.
from the governor's office.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Van Beek.
Thank you. Zach, you provided at an elected official meeting a proposed scenario of what the actual dollar amount for the property tax would be per citizen. Is that still a number that's good given everything that we've talked about? I know this one was
That number was based on $11 million worth of CARES Act credits.
and today at 9 million, do you have a revised number of what that would be for the record?
I do not, but the benefit to the property taxpayer would be less, would be decreased.
And how much was on there, Zach? I could find it, but do you remember what that number was given $11 million?
I want to say it was anticipated a 5% reduction in someone's property tax.
Okay, thank you.
Based on $11 million of replacement money.
Based on $11 million replacement money. So that 5% would go down probably a little bit.
Yeah.
And
But right now what we're considering is not taking any of it. CARES replacement money.
Correct.
Right. And so that benefit wouldn't be there.
Would not be there.
Right.
for clarification, for the clerk, we are still making the proposal not to take 3% and no foregone on that, but to take the foregone on the new construction at 2.1, is that right? That will be decided last
That's
night.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. I kind of prefer the other way, but I'm not sure about that. I think that's okay. Either way, it's similar. It's just a different nuance in how that equates down the road if you ever need it.
True.
Senator,
Yes.
I have a question, and it has to do, I was looking again at the information that you provided, Zach, and it's basically the recap of the compensation plan. So in that evaluation, it looks like there's 36 vacant positions in that. Can you speak to those on funded, not funded, funded, filled, that kind of thing?
Those 36 positions are funded positions. They are just not occupied or filled at present.
And what's the value of those positions?
The value of those positions.
Right, of those funded positions, and have we evaluated each one of those? Because that would be, if we're holding money for those, that would also be a way to create property tax relief if we eliminated those funded positions from the budget.
That's the roughly $1.5 to $2 million value of those positions. And they have all been evaluated. They've all been approved. They've been funded in years past. Feeling that those positions are still needful. Turnover happens with 800 employees, 850 positions. There's going to be turnover and open vacant positions.
And so in this year, though, where we've already identified, that's my next question, you have a number of sheriff's positions in there. Are those the same positions, or are they in addition to what the sheriff is requesting this fiscal year?
I'm not following the question, I apologize.
That's okay. In looking at those funded, not filled positions, you provided earlier with that, what we're going to fund this year, there was $64,000, I think, for 8 positions, $48,000 for 2 positions. And those numbers don't match the vacant amount in the compensation plan. So I'm wondering if what you have allocated in the sheriff's budget specifically is in addition to what we're going to fund this year that we've already identified, 2 for court transfer, 2 for driver's license, and 5 for rotation, 4 for rotation, 1 for supply.
All of the approved positions within the sheriff's office are funded. Whether they're filled at the moment or not, all of the approved positions are funded.
And that part I understand.
And then also there's funding included in the budget for 8 new positions.
So in addition to what you listed as funded in the compensation plan, there's 8 more. Yes.
The compensation program plan is for current positions for the step advancement. The new positions are budgeted in a separate line identified as new or reclassified positions.
Okay, and I'll ask you so that we can get on the same page after the meeting. And then I had made a request for fiscal 2021 other expenditures and capital investments by department, breakdown of that for that $9.2 million. And I know I would have to go through line by line for these budgets. Do we have that?
Yes, that was provided a few days ago.
I apologize, and we'll take a look at that.
So what do you need from the commissioners today, Zach? Are we going to leave this meeting? Are we going to continue this? Are we going to still sign because we need to get that publication in process? So what do you need?
I need signatures. I believe we need to sign today. However, what I prepared included the $9 million deduction for the CARES Act.
Okay.
So I need to go back and remove that, make a few changes, and then I can bring down a document, a tentative budget for publication.
Okay, because we have,
Madam Chair, on
Yes.
the expenditure side of that would be the $767, whatever it is. We could have it spent.
okay,
Well, Madam Chair, those are there's 2 changes. One's a revenue side and one's an expenditure side, and it's all related to CARES Act.
But I wonder if we need to leave in the $760,000 for a budgetary reason, because you can't increase.
Increase, yes.
In case the play out is that we do take the CARES.
Then we're gonna need that expenditure money. If we don't, then we just don't spend it.
And then it turns out at the end that we come to the conclusion that we're not gonna take it, then you can reduce that.
Just doesn't get spent.
Right.
So should we, because we need to sign corrected documents, we have this meeting until 11 o'clock, from 10 to 11. I know that's really limiting. That gives you 26 minutes.
We could just, Madam Chair, I would suggest maybe we could continue this. We don't have to close this meeting.
No, we're not closing it. We're going to continue, but
Right.
we have this meeting scheduled until 11. So we wouldn't have to continue it if we can.
And my thought was that we could go till noon, really. There's nothing that says we can't go till
I think I
noon.
can be back by 15 minutes.
You think? Okay, because we're still,
$1 million budget.
yes, because we're agendized for 10 to 11 for this, to get this taken care of, so.
Madam Chair, I inherently liked Commissioner Dale's position because there's been a lot of information, I know, on the clerk and the auditor's side, and a lot of information for the board, and I'm good to take till noon because I want to think about both options, so that would work for me to continue with it until noon.
Think about both options.
We have the CARES with the inclusion, and when I know we're going to take that out, I guess I'm just evaluating. I'm kind of
Madam Chair, we'd like to have the amended, clerk's budget back here, within a timely manner, whether you sign it.
Okay.
So how much time do you need?
So are you gonna,
I'm going to get right on, hopefully 10, 15 minutes.
you're good, go.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recess?
Okay, yeah, we'll just recess. Okay. Wow.
Do we keep these going?
I'll mute it.
Okay.
And,
all good?
It's all good.
The guy that had the news hanging in his garage,
Oh, yeah.
which was
Yeah.
a phony.
Which was a phony deal.
Yeah.
Because it was left over from 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
When he wasn't in that garage.
it's a pull rope for the garage door.
Oh. That's what it was.
Well,
And it put a loop in it so you can grab it.
Yeah.
yeah, I had one of those on my kitchen door. I never even thought it was a racist thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back on the record here with the Canyon County Clerk and the Canyon County Controller. And he has handed us the tentative budget and property taxes for the year 2021 and the worksheet.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to start with the worksheet.
Okay.
2020 County L2 worksheet. This is a property tax worksheet. So in box 1, you'll see the amount of $54,820,000. That's kind of the starting point. Right below that is a box to include your 3%. And that is a 0 there. Below that is the detail for new construction. There was nearly $600 million of new construction. But I zeroed out the budgetary increase. So that box 6 shows a 0 for the new construction increase. So this shows we're not taking any of the 3%. We're not taking any of the new construction. There's some other factors related to replacement monies. Bottom line, property tax, $53,970,567. And no adjustment for CARES Act monies. Any questions on that worksheet?
Pretty clear.
Jack, so last year, the amount of levy property taxes was that 54 million. So
That included a what we call a judgment levy. There was a court decision, a court order that resulted in some refunded taxes. That was included in last year's 2020's.
you've eliminated that one-time revenue and it would have been this had we not had that.
That was a one-time deal to replace monies that were lost from a lowered assessed value.
Thank you. So that, I'm sorry, I'm going to clarify that again. So the assessor's office had a property that evidently we overvalued, so we've taken that amount of what would have been assigned to that property out according to the resolution. Is that what I'm saying? Right?
Individuals can protest their property valuations.
Yes.
And sometimes with court hearings, those can go on for years and years and years. So this was a matter that had carried over for many years. It was finally decided. There were some property taxes that were refunded.
Okay. Thank you. And Zach, I'm going to ask a question. So we have new expenses coming for this new fiscal year, and can you explain again? I understand your reasoning that this would provide the greatest amount of property tax relief, but do the new revenues, without taking new construction, do other revenues cover the amount of the expenses in the budget?
Yes. The county has multiple revenue sources. I think it's, we're blessed to have a wide range of revenue sources. That's helpful, that's beneficial for financial planning. You don't want to be overly reliant on a single source of revenue, whatever business you're in. So to have a diverse, broad source of revenues coming in from multiple sources is beneficial, and then in turn we can benefit property taxpayers.
And I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying we have $1.2 million in increases in the STEP program, compensation, increased wages, $575,000 in reclassified new positions. So that's basically 2.1 million that's ongoing. That's not any part of property tax relief in there. And then the other things that we cut out of the budget will either at some point have to be introduced, or we had, before the new recess, identified 36 positions that are funded in there. So there's not, and you indicated that those are necessary, so there's not property tax relief there. So my question goes back to where the permanent property tax relief would be found in the budget.
In multiple places. The indigent office comes to mind. There's been changes relating to our indigent medical program. We've reduced our medical payout line item. We've reduced our staff significantly in indigent medical. Juvenile Detention Center has returned 5 or 6 positions in the 2021 budget. There have been permanent reductions in spending that we've seen.
And you said, I think maybe that you provide this, but the total amount of those 12 positions that were unfunded, and then we have additional positions. What's the dollar amount of those 12 positions?
That's probably around $750,000. Included in that would be the security director position as well. It's unfunded.
So therein is the answer to why we can hold the property tax budget at an equal rate rather than increase it, because we've had those decreases in other areas.
And indigent medical, that's paid for with property tax.
Right.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this, what you're looking at is a tax rate. Is that tax relief to the property? Yes, it is. You know, in 2010, the population of Canyon County was 188,000. It projected that the 21 census Canyon County would be 240,000. That's a fair increase. Does anybody here think that there's not expenses involved with that kind of increase in population? In my opinion, Canyon County has done quite well. We've been fiscally responsible. We're sure doing it now. You know, I started in on this budget with the clerk suggested budget, given the circumstances that we have. You know, I'm looking at grandma and grandpa out there that how many schools do they have to build? I'm looking at the restaurant owners that haven't been able to be open, and when they were limited. I'm looking at those waitresses that didn't have any income. I'm looking at the maids at the hotels that basically without a job. I think that this county we have a fiscal obligation to do the right thing, property tax wise. We have a moral obligation to do the right thing. And that's what we're doing with this budget. The cuts that we have made are cuts that I believed in, but I believe that we weren't doing substantial harm. And when we talk about essential, that essentials become a big word in today's society. We looked at what's essential, what's non-essential. And you know what? County government is mandated. Almost everything we do here is mandated. And we have a lot of things that the state or federal level requires us to do that unfortunately is not funded at a proper level, and the property taxpayers have to make that up. And we're hopeful to make some changes in those areas, and that's one of the reasons that beyond the property tax relief, we're foregoing new construction, and to me, and I'll practically guarantee you, that's not going to be a common thing anywhere in the state. I want a seat at the table. I want Canyon County to have a seat at the table. Say, we did our job. We did our job to protect our citizens. State, what are you going to do? They need to step up to the plate and make the changes necessary that we have a sustainable system here. I think we can all agree that what's going on, particularly with the population increase and building schools, that is not a sustainable program. It just isn't. We're doing our part, and I think we have a moral obligation to do this, who knows where we're going to end up on the CARES Act money, but I feel comfortable with this option. We throw the property tax back in, and we have the option, if we have a comfort level, put that back in, and that's that much more property tax relief. Right?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Zach, for Chris, I have a question for you. Reading the second page of your tentative budget and property taxes. So under your code cited for 638021, you indicated the right to recover 3% foregone property tax increases of $1,644,629. And I thought we were letting those go and putting the new construction in foregone of $2.1 million.
Well, I apologize. I neglected to change that in the time when I went back to my office to make some updates. I can adjust that amount right here, right now. However, whatever amount we would like to reserve in our foregone balance. The new construction amount would be a little over $2.1 million. Would you like that for the?
Well, and again, my point, and I'm comfortable, I'm ready to accept whatever the decision is, but just so everybody's clear, the difference between doing the foregone with the new construction of the foregone with the 3% is the 3% remains a percent that you can increase the budget. And the foregone remains a fixed dollar amount. And whether that makes a big difference in the long run, it is a nuanced difference that I think we need to be aware of. That down the road, you could take a 3% more, which is going to fluctuate with the values and that sort of stuff. So, whereas the new construction is a fixed dollar amount of, say, $2.1 million. Yeah.
And thank you, Commissioner Dale. So, Zach, I want to make sure I understand what he's saying, because it makes it sound like that at the point you would take foregone, you would take it at whatever 3% of that would be that year, but you're identified a dollar amount, and that's the dollar amount that would go into the foregone, correct?
So the county has a current foregone balance.
Yes.
$5.6 million.
Yes.
Yes, this is spelling out a specific dollar amount that would increase the $5.6 million.
And that's the way I understood it to work. But based on what I heard Commissioner Dale say, it sounds like that he's saying there's a variance because it's 3%, but it's 3% of what this year's allowable property tax would be. Is that correct?
It's a look back at the last 3 years, the highest of the last 3 years.
So it can change. Yeah.
It can change, but whatever we decide to reserve needs to be a specific dollar amount.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to include a dollar amount. You could say 3% and take the highest of the last 3 years. Is that what you're saying is an option?
I'm saying what the option is, if we're going to reserve foregone amounts, it needs to be a specific dollar amount.
Okay.
That will increase the foregone balance.
Okay.
So with that explanation, I think it does make sense to just say we're not going to include the foregone of the 3% that's allowable. We're going to include as foregone this fixed dollar amount which relates to new construction. I think that is easily explained. I can explain that to most people. I won't say everybody.
Well, and it has some political ramifications in that everybody plans on all government entities taking new construction. So I think it will not raise eyebrows that we are going to retain that for foregone rather than the 3%.
Right. I'm comfortable with that.
In fact, the levy rate for fiscal year 2021 will be the 003545093. That's what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's last year's levy rate.
So what's the levy rate going to be for this year?
not fixed yet, but it's estimated it'd be around 0.0031.
We don't have that number.
But we don't have the final values to determine the levy until September, October time.
We don't fix the levy. The levy is determined based on our budget and the values and that juxtaposition there.
Right.
But can I ask a question then, Chris? Because we know what the total assessed value base is, which is 15 billion. We don't.
No, we don't. We don't know that, we don't have those yet.
Okay, but you built your, didn't we build the projection of 17 billion? Wasn't that how you looked at? I thought I asked that the question on what you were using for your total assessed base, and it was 17 billion and some change.
We don't have, that's an estimate. We don't have the final numbers yet. State of Idaho values what's called operating property, and that's included in taxable value. The state has not provided us those numbers yet, so we're making an estimate. But on 17 billion, 300 million isn't a real large percentage of that, so it likely won't move the needle very much. But at this point, it's an estimated levy rate.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm just going to put my thoughts out here. I know you and Commissioner Dale are probably more closely aligned on this budget, but there is a lot of information. I have tried hard to stay up, and I appreciate the discussion and the effort on the part of all parties, but there's too much information. I'm not ready to vote on this, so I will be voting no on this tentative budget because I don't feel personally it's been properly vetted. We don't have a new levy rate. I would like to see, even though I know it's traditional, but some inclusion of new construction to pay for increased expenses. And then on the compensation plan, and looking at the information that was provided last year, the county provided incentives, at least on the elected official scale, of 2.3% up to 7.7%. And so there's a question for me. I do believe that people should be compensated fairly, but I also believe that there should be a cap. Ada County is putting a cap on that, and that there needs to be continued discussion about what that looks like, particularly in a year where I know we're providing services, but I believe that Canyon County is an employer of choice, and how we treat our employees is just as valuable as what we pay them, and that we should be standing with it as a year. So I'm not budget.
So I guess my question to you, Commissioner Van Beek, would be, if you had another 2 weeks, will it change your mind?
What I would appreciate the opportunity, I guess, to do is to have continued discussion, Madam Chair, and I will look at just alternative ways. I believe that's prudent, and it would give me more time. I'm not going to vote on something that I don't have a better understanding of than I do this morning. I'm not going to do that. I've taken that position since I was sworn in. I have to understand what I'm signing.
I think you understand what you're signing. I think you just still have some questions.
And that's probably okay, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I think there's been some great work done on this budget, and I really commend the clerk and auditor for their hours and hours and hours spent on this, along with all of our elected officials, along with our department heads who have sweated and labored over this budget, as they do every year. And I would just point out, you know, I appreciate the thought and the comment from Leslie that says that, you know, well, given the situation this year, I would just add that I would just say that this is my 24th budget for city, county, along with budgets for other organizations in which I've been the chairman and board member, executive board member. I've done a lot of budgets. And almost every year you could say, well, given the situation of this year, I don't think we should do X, or I don't think we should do Y. That's what got the county into a big hole in our medical and our health, self-insured health plan. We were bankrupt because people, the previous administrators kept saying, well, given this year, I don't think we should increase that number. So we worked ourselves into a hole, and we had to make some radical, painful adjustments to get ourselves on a position where we're solvent and sustainable, which I believe we are today. But we need to keep that moment. The same thing can be applied to any kind of a compensation plan. It was stated, well, given this year, I don't think we should give any kind of, we should not have a compensation plan followed. That got us into the situation where we were seeing upwards of 20% to 25% turnover rate in the sheriff's department, and other departments were similar. We had tremendous turnover rates. So we implemented the compensation plan 4 years ago?
March of 2016.
So that's 4 years ago. And we are starting to see the fruits of that plan with our retention rates improving. That plan needs to be sustained. Our greatest asset in a service organization are the people. That's our greatest asset. We need to take care of our people. And I really believe that a compensation plan needs to be followed as a plan. If you start throwing it out year to year, pretty soon you're going to find yourself in another hole from which you're going to have to make a tremendously painful adjustment. And I've maintained this for all the years I've done this. It's always cheaper to retain than it is to retrain. We like that, and that is a proven fiscally responsible principle to follow. So I think this is a good budget. I like the fact that you have been able to design this budget without taking the 3% or without taking the new construction. I've been on that other side of that fence for most of my career as a public official, that you ought to take the 3% and the new construction every year. But we're looking at a time when the legislature is watching what we're doing to see if we're managing our budget in a conservative, fiscally responsible manner. And I see that is happening in this year's budget. I feel comfortable about not including that CARES money, the COVID money in this, because there's too many questions. What if it comes back? What if the lawsuit turns a direction to where we have to come up with an extra $9 million to make that up? That's going to be very painful. So I think until we get those answers, I think it is the most prudent and safe thing to not include that CARES money into the property tax calculation. So I think following the wisdom of our controller and clerk, I think it is the right thing to do in this case. And I like this budget. I'm ready to move on.
Madam Chair, if I could just add one more thing to Tom has to say. The compensation plan, the idea of retention, I'll add one more thing to that. When you have good people that know their job, it requires less new positions. And that is part of the plan. To try to keep, that's why we went 1 year with 0 new positions. We're close to that this year under the sheriff's office. We are able to do that because we don't have the 25% turnover. Because we have people that can do the job instead of we're always hiring, we're always training, and it requires more people to get the job done. You know, we have several departments that and offices that they're barely keeping above water. And let me give you an example. I just checked yesterday with reporting on the, I forget the exact verbiage, but on one portion of what we do there, we're still a year behind. And that's why I added another person there. I did away with my admin assistant, underfilled that, add another person. Now we're catching up. We were well over that year behind. We're catching up because we're not doing, because of COVID, and we're not doing passport. But we have other areas in the county where we're barely staying above water. compensating properly and not having the turnover is how we can do that.
Thank you.
I think when we started the process, the common line was hold the line. What you have given us is an example of hold the line. And you feel good about it as the controller recommending, you feel good about it as the clerk recommending, we're going to hold the line. And we have in essence, we have done that. If you look at the 54,820,975 and you drop down and look at the 53,970, 567, that's, you came in under the line. So it is, that's what we said that from the very beginning. This year, this has been an unusual and it's been a tough year and a difficult year, and we're not through. We really aren't. And we've accomplished that with this. Now, line by line, are there places where we disagree? Yes, there probably is, but that's okay when you look at the bottom line, and we have, in the way it's worked out, accomplished what we set out to do. And for that, I'm very, very grateful, because that's what I told people. When people ask about this year's budget, hold the line. And so there's nothing to apologize for. I think that I think we've done good. And I don't think that we have defunded any of the essential aspects of our budget. We have not defunded any of that, and we're keeping that compensation plan whole, and I think it's absolutely huge. And the CARES money, that remains to be seen. That this is very good to me without it. So I'm fine with this, and it has been a budget year of very, very good discussions. I mean, and really good give and take. It has really, people have weighed in and they've had different ideas and have different views of different things, and I've appreciated that. It's been a very, very good experience. So thank you to everybody and the department heads, and thank you. It has been a very good experience. So, Commissioner Van Beek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to say for the record, I'm not suggesting that we do not fund necessary things, and I recognize that compensating employees is part of that. So my statement again is that our expenses meet our revenues. We don't ask our revenues to meet the expenses. So careful planning in on that. And then an evaluation of the rubric, because in what it's done, one of the lowest increases that was taken by an elected official has one of the highest frontline positions in the county. So there doesn't appear to be a rubric that I understand anyway with that. And I would submit that I would be in favor of outsourcing that to get a look, some of those salary increases for looking at that. Some of the concentrations of the highest are within that group that sets that. So I'm just saying that an objective look, a fresh look, a different look, a commissioner that looks at those and what that looks like, it is important to the county to maintain accountability and transparency, and it's important to the taxpayer. And again, where we don't have a cap and where we don't really have commissioners inputting, or at least a roundtable discussion of elected officials on what constitutes fairness across the board, I didn't see that. So anyway, thank you.
We don't have a cap on, what do we need a cap?
When I spoke to Ada County and their controller, what they indicated is that the raises that they give have a floor of 1%, a cap of 5%, and elected officials never set their own salary. That's made up of I think it includes elected officials. I have to get more information, but also citizens. But and then I have asked, and I know that the clerk's office it's to be commended that you do have employees who are tracking performance and production. I think that's essential. I think there's some areas where we need to go back and look again on what we're doing for in-office time, production time, performance time. That's how the real world operates, and we want to get to that.
I think that with the compensation plan, that gives us a cap because we have the regular step increases, that sort of thing. I think what you're alluding to when they're on the ones that there are some that, you know, the highest paid, whatever, it's frontline or something like that. I think that comes from years ago in that there was no rubric, there was nothing, there was not a compensation plan, and we really liked that person, so we gave them the moon. And they got the moon, and then when we did the compensation plan, it was like, whoa, I'm only 41 and I'm maxed out. I'm laid out against the glass ceiling, so to speak, you know? But that's because we had no guidelines or no foundation, no plan by which to do that. So now, that very thing that you have alluded to, thank you, is one of the huge reasons the compensation plan is so vital and so important and so successful. So, because that very thing was recognized, and that won't happen with the compensation plan the way it is. And so I think that I appreciate your input and your observations and your suggestions and everything about it, Commissioner Van Beek. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, there was a comment made about in Ada County, elected officials don't set their own salaries. Well, commissioners are responsible for setting the salaries, so they will always set those salaries. And in Canyon County, when we looked at elected officials' salaries, that was done by an independent group that evaluated elected official salaries around the region, around the state, and came up with the suggested salary. So it was not, the elected officials did not suggest their own salaries. It was done by an outside group as well. So, and then they always come back to commissioners as elected officials to set those salary rates. And just reiterate again that there are no salary increases in the budget this year for elected officials. They're held at 0% increase. Zero. Yeah. Madam Chair, I think we've had some great discussion, and I would just say that I believe that the in-depth look that three of us have taken at this budget, because we've all dug into this. We've all evaluated those positions over some of us over years, but we've all dug into this. We understand the budget, and I appreciate that deep understanding that we all have of this process. And I will make the motion that we authorize the board to sign the fiscal year 2021 budget for publication as it has been presented to us today.
As amended with the one line with the replacing the 3% with the infrastructure.
Right, with that correction. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay, and I will second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yes.
Okay, that will
Thank you.
conclude this meeting. Thank you very, very much.
I saw that in my email.
And this is the petty cash